Once, authenticity was rooted in truth or origin, a thing with history and context. Now it's manufactured effect, an effective signal designed to suggest human presence. Early photography was trusted because it captured reality as chemical trace, the realness of having been there. Today, AI-generated images mimic those same flaws to simulate legitimacy. Filters add grainy edges and humanization. Algorithms smooth out robotic speech. We're not just consuming media anymore. We are being sold a counterfeit soul.
Auto-tune has evolved from a corrective tool to a defining sonic signature of modern pop, reshaping vocal performance into a polished, often hyperreal art form.
Instagram filters don't just aestheticize photos. They simulate trust by replicating what we associate with real. Cameras and authentic capture. The grain of film, the softness of a vintage lens. These are not just visual choices, but coded reassurances that this image was once made by human hands. But in truth, behind every carefully applied filter is an algorithm faking imperfection, turning digital flatness into analog nostalgia to convince us it's reals. While we're distracted by digital aesthetics, imperfection has been rebranded as a feature, not just in photography, but in sound. Meta-humanization plugins insert tiny timing errors into AI, generated beats to mimic live performances. These errors are carefully calculated deviations from mechanical precision, designed to fool our ears and convince us something human was involved. In doing so, they don't just imitate humanity, they counterfeit its flaws for commercial consumptions. Even language becomes suspect when AI chatbots deliberately misspell or stutter for realism. These aren't bugs, they're features designed to mimic the cognitive hesitations of human users. In doing so, they spoof not just speech, but the very architecture of thought itself. Authenticity is no longer a signifier of truths. It's a performance that can be learned and replicated by systems programmed to pass as something organic. Our language, once the last refuge of the uncopyable, now bends under the weight of algorithmic mimicry.
I want to get to a question from Lee, just the first name from this shareholder, wrote in a question about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and the impact on the Daily Journal's business model and civilization at large. Says, I'm not sure if you've tried to converse with ChatGPT, given all the rage in the news lately.
That's a kind of organic way of approaching music, creation of sound.
She was a mathematician and a musician, and someone who felt sound very deeply. She was very, very precise in the way she worked. She would analyze a sound down to its nth partial, and then use these analyses to build music from the ground up.
Very, very special lady. incredibly talented.
In the 21st century, authenticity is no longer about truth. It's about performance. The tools that once helped us detect fakes are now being used to make better forgeries. AI doesn't just mimic reality. It sharpens the edges of deception until even our instincts hesitate. What was once a flaw becomes a feature in this recursive loop. Detection begets more sophisticated spoofing, and spoofing demands ever sharper tools. This is not just progress, it's the collapse of what we knew as real. Bathers, punctum, the accidental detail that pierces an image with truth is now a relic. Every speck of texture, every shadow can be manufactured to order. The rawness he cherished was always a signal for the human hand at work. But now, even authenticity, as fault is faked, what's left when imperfection itself becomes performative? When you can script vulnerability into an algorithm, what does that say about us? Warren Buffett, of all people, called deepfakes unpredictable. It's a telling admission, not just of technological anxiety, but of cognitive fatigue. When every medium becomes suspect, we lose the ability to anchor our understanding in anything physical or sensory. Authenticity is no longer about the content itself. It's about the trust in its source. But when sources can be cloned at will, what do we cling to? The answer may lie not in better tools, but in rethinking why. We still need truth markers at all.
Computer music becomes a rather exceptionally good programmer. So I think there's very little resistance, especially in the young generation. After all, people the age of is at will, the young man, well, I mean, he's already beat the hurdle, you see. He already understands a great deal about programming because these things are in the environment, and that's good.
Okay, John Chowning of Stanford and Ellen Lapham of Centauri, thanks so much for being here, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week again on the Computer Chronicles.
Neil Postman once warned that technology doesn't just change tools. It commandeers language and rewrites our definitions of reality itself. Today, his warning echoes in how AI transforms authenticity from a human trait into an engineered feature, like seasoning added to taste. What was once a marker of truth has become something we can toggle on or off with algorithmic precision. We no longer ask if something is real. We ask whether it simulates the appearance of being real convincingly enough. Meets the road. When authenticity becomes a feature we can tweak, we stop caring about what is real in any meaningful sense. We train our brains to recognize patterns, faces with two, perfect symmetry, text with suspiciously fluid syntax, as if detection has replaced understanding. The more convincingly something simulates human imperfections, the less relevant it is, whether there was a human behind it at all. Trust no longer comes from knowing where truth begins and ends. But from learning what science, way ahead of his time as always, described a world where the real and fake can no longer be told apart. Not because we're bad at spotting fakes, but because simulation has become the rule. The future is not one in which we detect fakes more cleverly. It's one where we stop caring what is original or imitation. What matters isn't truth, but function. Does this image persuade us? Does this voice speak to me as if I am known? In that space, Baudrillard's hyperreality doesn't just describe culture, it describes truth.